Ray, do you remember the story when you were a kid about Jack and the Beanstalk?
Of course. He trades a cow for a few beans, the goose that lays the golden eggs, fee-fi-fo-fum.
Right, that's the one. So, spoilers, at the end, Jack bests the giant, chops down the beanstalk, and the giant falls to the ground dead.
Right. I mean, somehow my mom told it better than that when I was a kid.
That's fair. I mean, we did that story. No justice here today in Hamden, Connecticut.
All right, other than to trash a classic children's story, why did we come to this forest in Hampton, Jeff?
So we've come to Hamden looking for a real giant, Ray.
You'd think a giant would be kind of hard to miss.
Okay, so this giant is so big that we're too close to see it. We're in Hamden, Connecticut, searching for the sleeping giant Hobbomock. Hello, I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger. Welcome to episode 258 of the New England Legends podcast. Thanks for joining us on our mission to chronicle every legend in New England, one story at a time.
We're a community of legend seekers, always on the trail of monsters, ghosts, aliens, roadside oddities, strange history, and the just plain odd. We love it when you get involved. You can start by subscribing to our podcast because it's free, and please consider posting a review for us on Apple Podcasts. And tell a friend or two about our show. It's how our community grows. And considering so many story leads come from you, the more listeners we have, the more weirdness we can bring your way.
Now, before we go hunting for a giant in Hamden, we want to take just a minute to tell you about our sponsor, Nuati Herbals.
Ray, it's the height of summer.
It sure is.
People are out there exploring legendary locations, old cemeteries, and searching for monsters in the woods and lakes.
They sure are.
When you're packing your flashlights, EVP recorders, EMF meters, and everything else into your legend hunting gear bag, be sure to include some no-skeeto insect repellent from Nuati Herbals.
Now, what I love about no-skeeto insect repellent is that it's DEET-free. Like all Nuati Herbals products, it uses 100% natural ingredients, so it's safe around my pets, my kids, and me. Best of all, it works. It repels those mosquitoes, gnats, flies, and other insects who conspire to ruin my perfect summer days.
And we know summer days are made even more perfect with some flavored teas from Nuati Herbals. We've been telling you a lot about their two new flavors, peach vanilla and blueberry cinnamon, but they have so many great flavors that are perfect, hot or cold, for summer.
Absolutely. There's lemon sun, strawberry moon, rootberry tea, honey and spice, chocolate chai, just to name a few more. And don't be shy about mixing them together. I made the perfect summer iced tea by mixing honey and spice with lemon sun. By all means, become your own mixologist.
Let Nuati Herbals help support your healthy lifestyle. Check out the Nuati Herbals website to see all of their great products, and you get 20% off your order when you use the promo code LEGENDS20 at checkout. Visit NuatiHerbals.com. That's Nuwati Herbals with an S.com.
All right, Jeff, so we're looking for a giant in Hamden, Connecticut.
We are, and as I said before, we're too close to see it right now here in these wooded hills. But if we back up just a couple of miles over by the bank of the Quinnipiac River. Okay, now take a look.
Oh, yeah, I see it. It's pretty clear that over to our left, or west, there's a head. Then it comes down a bit to a neck. Now, as I scan to the east, it rises up again for the chest. Then it tapers down toward the legs and feet.
Right, it looks like a sleeping giant lying on his back. The whole ridgeline of the sleeping giant is a little over 1 mile. The forehead is at the highest point at 739 feet above sea level.
Yeah, that's a big giant. But clearly, this is just like finding shapes in the clouds, right? I mean, no one actually believes there's a giant under there. Do they?
Well, that's a complicated answer, Ray. And before we head back to figure it out, I brought a topographical map of Connecticut. Okay. You can see Connecticut doesn't have a lot of big mountains.
No, it really doesn't.
But there's rolling hills and things like that.
Right. The most obvious of the foothills of the Berkshire Mountains to the northwest corner of the state. And there are more hills in the northeastern part of the state as well.
Right. And it's easy to see that almost all of Connecticut's hilly features run in a north-south direction.
Yeah, I mean, when you glance at that topographical map, it's pretty clear.
Most of this is trap rock that was formed 170 million years ago from volcanic activity, and it runs north and south and tends to break at 90-degree angles, which can look almost like large stair steps. But if you look closely at this ridge right here in Hamden...
Oh, well, this one runs east and west.
Right, it sticks out. Not only does it look like a sleeping giant, the ridge lies in a different direction than almost any other you can find in the entire state. Clearly, something is different about this one. So let's head back to the year 1422 and meet this giant.
It's the summer of 1422 here in this lush valley by the river. This is the home of the Quinnipiac people who have lived here along the coast and in the river valley for centuries.
This land is not only fertile with abundant fresh water provided by the river, it also sits in a valley, offering some added protection from the weather. Then there's the abundant food offered by the ocean that sits just to the south. Plus, a number of important trade routes intersect right here, allowing the Quinnipiac people to trade and sometimes even intermarry with other communities in the region. It's a great place to live. Now.
Yet, like any community, there's good days and bad. Sometimes food is abundant, and other times it can be hard to find. Sometimes the weather can turn sour and dangerous. Then there's the marauding outsiders who occasionally get into the community and wreak havoc.
That's the worst. And when times are bad, we can't help but look for reasons beyond random chance.
Which is why when hard times seep into their lives, the Quinnipiac people need only to gaze at this hillside and repeat the story they've been telling for generations about the horrible giant that lies sleeping underneath that hill, and the good God that was looking out for them in times of trouble.
For as long as the Quinnipiac have lived here, they've had to contend with a menacing giant named Hobbomock.
Hobbomock isn't necessarily the embodiment of evil, but he does like to get his own way. He also has a weak spot for oysters.
Oysters?
Yeah. He's been known to lurk on the coast and eat every oyster he can find, leaving none for the local people. And if he doesn't get his way, he throws a temper tantrum. Just north of here, he once approached the mighty river and stomped his foot so hard that it caused the river running through this region to change course. Several villages were flooded, and many Quinnipiac people were killed.
So Hobbomock is a big problem.
A very big problem.
One day, after Hobbomock had eaten every last oyster on the coast, he walked north to right here in the valley, where he laid down for a nap.
That's when the creator god Kiaton steps in to help the Quinnipiac. Now, because Hobbomock is a divine creature, Kiaton can't simply kill him. But he sees the giant asleep there in the valley and seizes the opportunity. Kiaton casts a spell on Hobbomock, so the giant will sleep forever.
The spell works, and peace returned to the region.
Over the course of many years, grass and then trees began to grow over the sleeping giant until he was completely covered. Though it takes a little distance to get the right perspective, you can still see Hobbomock sleeping under this range of hills. And that brings us back to today.
It's worth pointing out that there's an alternative version to the story of Hobbomock.
Oh, yeah?
So in another version, Hobbomock is a kind of misunderstood giant who was the spiritual leader of his people. He preached about balance with the animals and nature. So when his people began to lose their ability to communicate with the animals, Hobbomock grew angry and began punishing them, trying to get them back to their old ways. When you're a giant and your people are human-sized, that punishment can be brutal. So one day, a village elder figured out a way to stop the destruction and wrath of Hobbomock was to present him with a giant platter full of oysters that had been laced with a potion to make the giant sleep forever.
Ah, got it. And the end result is the same. A giant lying west to east, asleep under a range of hills.
Exactly. And today you can walk all over Hobbomock if you want to. There's 30 miles of hiking trails inside Sleeping Giant State Park. And seeing the profile of the sleeping giant it really doesn't take much imagination.
No, it's pretty clear, especially from a distance. I love these old creation stories. You got this geological feature that sticks out, not just because it looks like a giant sleeping person, but because it runs east and west, and every other range of hills runs north and south. It begs some questions.
It did then, it still does today. The sleeping giant stands as a testament that though there are monsters bigger and stronger than us, just like Jack, we too can outsmart the giants and leave behind a story worth telling again.
If you'd like to see a photo of the sleeping giant of Hamden, Connecticut, just head over to our website and click on episode 258.
And that brings us to After the Legend, which is sponsored by our Patreon patrons.
Our Patreon patrons are the mighty backbone of everything we do here. For 258 weeks, we've been coming to you from the weirdest places in New England and connecting you with the strange and unusual. Our patrons help out with hosting costs, production, travel, marketing, and everything else it takes to bring you a new legend each week.
Plus, they get early access to new episodes and bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear, and a private online community of other patrons who get to weigh in on everything that we do. It's just $3 per month. Think of it like buying us a drink each month, and we'll keep making more. To get more involved, head over to patreon.com/New England Legends to sign up.
Now I want a drink.
Now, okay, sure.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what? Right at the foot of the Sleeping Giant Hill is Quinnipiac University.
Wow.
Most famous, of course, for the national polls. You know, a Quinnipiac University poll said, blah, whatever. So they're nestled right there, right by the head of the Sleeping Giant.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, there's that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thought it was worth
I
saying.
still want a drink.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fair. I was thinking college and, drinking in college.
Oh, got you.
There was my loose connection. Oh, man. Jack and the Beanstalk.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a tale we've all heard in our youth.
We killed that one in the beginning, but I read a great analysis of that story from a psychologist who said, we tell that story to our children because obviously the giants are monsters.
Yeah.
And the giants are us, right? Adults.
Right.
We are bigger and stronger than our young children.
Don't trust any of them, kids.
Don't, right? And there's nothing they can do about it. They're not going to beat us up. They're not going to win in a fight. But the story teaches them that though you're smaller, you can be more cunning. You can outsmart the giants. You can get away safely even when, you're in great danger. And so it's a story that really has a moral for young kids. And I was thinking, the story of Hobbomock is not really all that different. It's a creation story. How did that hill get here? Well, let me tell you this story. But the inherent, moral to it is that just like Jack and the Beanstalk, the Quinnipiac people outsmarted the giant. They put him to sleep. They couldn't kill him, but they could put him to sleep. And that's a testament. Now this horrible giant is out of our way. Creation stories.
Yeah.
Not the only one. There's a fun one on the Cape and Islands. The Wampanoag have a legend about Moshop, who was a giant. And Moshop one day fell asleep on the mainland and woke up with his moccasins completely full of sand. And so he flung one out into the water, flung another one out into the water, and what landed became Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket.
I had never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's just a little creation story. But yeah, so you've got these great stories that sort of still stick around, especially when you've got a feature you can still see. Like the Sleeping Giant. And I love I mean, it doesn't take a lot of imagination when you see it.
Right.
You're just like a mile or so out. You see you're like, that really looks like a person
sleeping,
lying on his back, head facing, upward and so on. But yeah, really cool story. Really.
Was there a story about the old man on the mountain in New Hampshire?
Yeah, we did that one.
I don't remember.
God, that was a while ago.
So there is a legend to that face being there?
That face was that profile was recognized long before.
I tried to forget the first 40 episodes or so.
Wow. It's funny. Someone sent us an email the other day and said, "Why don't you do?" I don't even remember which one, but they're like, "Why don't you do a story about this? I can't believe you haven't done it yet." And so, of course, I go on our website, which has a search feature, my friends.
Yeah.
And I'm not making fun of this person. I'm grateful for our listeners, but I Google, I searched on our website and I said, "Here you go." It was episode 48 or whatever.
I think before you say something like, "I can't believe you've never done it," that's worth a search.
That's worth a search.
But if you say, "Oh, you guys should do this," then it's a friendly, "Oh, we did.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know."
Yeah.
But when you start pointing fingers, can't believe you haven't done this.
We're on it.
We did.
We've tried, but I love that there's so many more still to find, and that's where you guys come in. And
yeah, exactly.
We appreciate the emails we get, the messages through social media. We weren't raised in every little town in New England.
Right.
You were. And so it's great when you guys reach out.
You're well versed in this stuff, but there's still a lot of legends you don't know.
Every day we'll get an email, and I'll look at that and I'll go, "Oh my gosh, how did we not know that one?" Like that's and it goes in a spreadsheet. We keep a list, and we get to them. We really do. If there's a way we can tell it, then we absolutely do. Also, this is not our first Hobbomock story. Way back in episode, I said 48 before. I was just being random, but this time it was specific. It was episode 48. The devil left his mark in North Kingstown, Rhode Island. And you remember the Devil's Footprint? Devil's
Oh,
Footprint
yes.
Road?
Yeah.
And so the maiden had murdered a colonist and was being chased down, and so she screamed out for help from "Help me, Hobbomock." Hobbomock was the name then. Same, I assume same deity, just a slightly different pronunciation. And Hobbomock appeared and grabbed her by the waist and leapt off the rock over the ocean, dropped her, killing her, and then left the footprints behind.
It's horrible.
I know. And the thing about Hobbomock is that when colonists started landing here, there's a good and benevolent God, and then there's like this trickster God. And I think as the colonists were trying to sort of indoctrinate the locals into Christianity, they said, yeah, we have good God and we have the devil. Hobbomock is your devil. But Hobbomock isn't necessarily evil. He's just responsible for like the bad stuff.
It's like a Loki.
Well, Loki, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly like
It's a good,
Loki. Trickster, right?
Yeah, right.
Or also a menace, so, and it begs the big question, right? If a storm comes in and floods a village and kills people, is that evil? Or is it just unfortunate?
Right.
Right. It's not. Sometimes a storm's good. You need the rain.
Right.
But if it's too much, it kills somebody. Is it evil, or is it just
So a storm itself is not evil. It's nothing, really.
It's nothing. It's
because
neither.
it does cause good and bad.
That's right. You're too close to the worst part of it, and it could kill you.
See, now we're thinking too much.
I know, and I apologize. I really do. I do. But that's the thing, is that these early Puritans tried to tell the locals, like, no, God is good, and then there's the bad God, and all evil comes from the devil, and all good comes from God. And it's just a little more complicated than that when you start to break down the way their lives, their gods fit very simply into their lives, right? Like, oh man, someone ate all the oysters, right? I mean, is that evil? It's, you've been to the buffet where someone took all like the crab legs,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, really?
Yeah, it's just easier to blame a god.
Is it evil, or is it just, no, you were greedy and you took more than your share? And that's just how it goes sometimes.
If you have a story you think we should check out, please don't assume we've heard it, like we said. Reach out to us through our website, through our super secret Facebook group, or in our social media. Most of our story leads come from you.
We would like to thank our sponsor, New Audio Herbals. I'd like to thank our Patreon patrons, and our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember,
The bizarre is closer than you think.